Hello and welcome to today's video. This is the second in 2 videos so far on the mistake to avoid in OET speaking. I hope you managed to see the first video that I did, which was tip number 1 on a mistake to avoid. And in that video, I spoke a little bit about how you can start the role play in the right way. So if you've missed that video, just go back and have a look at that. Let's move on and focus on today's video, which is all about a mistake that I see happening sometimes. And when this mistake occurs, it really does negatively affect the score that can be given for the performance in OET speaking. So what is it? It's not listening carefully to the interlocutor and then, because of that, responding inappropriately. Now, make no mistake, I know that this is not deliberate, but it does unfortunately happen anyway. How can you make sure that you are demonstrating that you are listening carefully to your interlocutor and therefore you can appropriately respond? What I would recommend is having a clear strategy, a strategy that you can use each and every time you do a role play. This strategy is that when the interlocutor is speaking, all you're doing is listening carefully to what they say. This is important to do because only if you listen carefully can you respond appropriately. It makes sense, right? So what to do is make sure that every time you do the role play, you listen and then you respond. Then and only then should you be thinking about moving on to the next task you have to complete on the role play card. So remember, rushing to finish the role play is not going to help you perform well. Yes, you do want to show that you're getting through things efficiently, and yes, you do want to show fluency, but if you rush, mistakes are going to happen. And one of the mistakes is that you won't be listening very carefully to what your interlocutor is saying to you. Also remember that you don't automatically get a low score just because you haven't completed every single task on that role play card. Just try and do your best, get through the role play card efficiently, but at a natural pace. Okay, so for top scores, you need to know the test criteria. So I say this so much to my students and they probably get a little bit bored, but nonetheless, I'm going to say it again because it's really important. You need to know the test criteria. Okay, so once you know this, you'll be able to perform really well and really have an appreciation as to why certain things are really important to demonstrate. So let's have a look at the clinical communication and criteria for OET speaking. Specifically, we're going to have a look at this from the point of view of demonstrating good listening skills and responding appropriately and where it connects. So in the slide you can see here, there are 3 criteria that I've highlighted that specifically relate to the point that I'm making in this video. So let's have a look closer. So if you're not listening carefully, you won't demonstrate that you are being attentive to your interlocutor, your patient or relative. And if you're not being attentive, it's hard to show that you're being respectful at the same time. Because of course, it's respectful to listen to the person that you're in a conversation with. Also, it's going to be hard to pick up on patient cues, these signals that they give to try and give additional information, perhaps in a more indirect way. We have to be listening carefully to pick these things up. Also, if you aren't actually listening attentively, you're probably not giving those signs that demonstrate that either. So it's really important to make sure that you are staying tuned in to your interlocutor throughout the role play. As I've said before, I know that candidates and students in lessons, they are not ignoring the interlocutor deliberately. Why does this happen? So some of the things that I've noticed is that, for example, on exam day, it could be related to exam nerves. So obviously when we're nervous, things don't quite go as naturally as we might want them to go. So in the process of having those nerves, some of the things that need to be demonstrated might be forgotten. Nervousness can also lead to being super focused on reading the next task and not in that moment listening to the interlocutor. It also might be a case of rushing, and in that process of rushing to finish, missing that step of listening. Or it might be that you are listening, but there's actually a problem understanding the interlocutor. What can you do about exam nerves? Well, the fact of the matter, almost everyone gets nervous on test day. That's completely understandable. But what can help reduce them is just feeling like you're really well prepared. What you need to feel really prepared is knowledge and practice. So know what's needed of you on test day. Build those skills that you think you might be lacking and practice, practice, practice. If you're more confident, you'll be less nervous. How to make sure you're listening carefully. So we've spoken about the reasons why it might not happen, even though you intend to listen. So maybe we need to make sure there's a strategy in place. So have a clear strategy. When the interlocutor speaks, just listen, nothing else. No reading the next bullet point, nothing. Just listen. Then, and only then, should you be moving on to the next task, okay? And of course, not forgetting to respond appropriately before doing so. So listen to the interlocutor, then respond appropriately, and move on to the next task. Okay, so what if you respond inappropriately? Well, if you respond inappropriately, then I'm sure, as you'll understand, your score is going to be lower. An example might be this. Imagine a patient says, my back's causing me a lot of pain and I can't do my usual activities on the weekend, such as gardening and playing tennis. And then the healthcare professional responds by saying, oh, so is the pain affecting your lifestyle in any way? Oops, wrong thing to say in response. Okay, so this is not going to be appropriate as a response because it demonstrates that you've not really heard what the patient said. They've already spoken about the impact on their lifestyle. They've already spoken about the impact on their lifestyle. So this can happen through nerves, or it can simply happen through just missing what the interlocutor has said. So if you've had trouble hearing or understanding the interlocutor, please don't ignore it. It's better to either ask the interlocutor to repeat what they've said, and then you can respond appropriately. Or if you have actually heard what they've said, but what they've said needs clarification, then seek clarification. For example, you might say, sorry, I didn't quite catch that, if you need the interlocutor to repeat. Or if you need clarification, you might say, could you tell me what you mean by that? So the advantage of both of these examples I've given you are that you will then be able to respond appropriately. But not only that, you'll have the added advantage of using some idiomatic language, which will give you a higher language score too. So to wrap up, you're going to listen, understand, and respond appropriately. Okay, so to increase your OET speaking score, remember, listen carefully, understand what they've said, and respond appropriately. Then, and only then, move on to your next task. I hope you found this video helpful. If so, please give it a like, that will really help me. And don't forget to watch the next video that I'll be releasing soon, which will be tip number 3 of mistakes to avoid in OET speaking. Thanks for joining me and see you again soon.